Man, this test is so hard.
Hey man, what are you doing right now?
Oh, I'm just doing some bio work I forgot to do.
Oh, I remember doing this before. This was pretty easy.
Really?
Yeah man, I could try to help you out right now. Oh wait, I have an idea. Let's hop into my car. Let me show you something real quick. We're going somewhere really far, so hang on tight.
We're finally here.
Okay, let me explain some terms so you understand the context what I'm gonna explain.
Okay, so look around you. What do you notice? A bunch of deer? Yeah, they're called deer, but what do you think all the deers here are called? Animals? Yeah, but no. This is a population of white-tailed deer, which means a group of individuals of the same species that live in a particular area. Let's say, for example, where do you live right now? Calgary? Yes, all the people not including animals, just humans that live in Calgary are the population. That includes you and me. If you want to be more specific, let's say our school. The amount of people that attend the school is the population. Okay, now I want to get a little bit more deeper. Okay, let's get close to this white-tailed deer. What would this be called? Like you said before, a species. Very good, you're learning. What's a species though? An animal? Yeah, you're right, but you could say that, but to be more detailed. My definition of a species is a living thing that could reproduce with others, while their babies can also be able to reproduce. But before I start yapping, why do you think I didn't call that white-tailed deer a deer? I don't know. Well, the term deer is a general group, so it wouldn't be called a species. The specific kind of deer is what makes it a species. So if you see a fish, it is a fish, but if you want to be more detailed, like a clownfish, that's a species. Saying fish is just a broad group, as there's a million of fish species. Overall, this is a community that we are in right now. It's all different populations of species that interact and live in the same area at the same time, like these plants, animals, and the bacteria. All right. So now look beyond the population of deer and look at other species in this environment. Look around you. You can see how the sun gives energy to the plants, and the plants growing and making food and oxygen. The animals eating those plants and other animals. And we got bacteria and fungi breaking down the waste, returning the nutrients into the soil. Everything in this environment is connected and plays a role. This is a cycle. This keeps balance between living things and helps the environment stay healthy and survive. Okay, let's go somewhere else. Let's go to these bushes for a second. Okay, now that you understand how everything in an environment is connected through a cycle, let's explore how individuals interact, both within their own population and with members of other populations. Okay, you see that wolf? That's why I call it predator, since right now, its eyes are directly looking at its prey, which is the white-tailed deer. The wolf could also be a prey, like if a more dominant species came, like a bear appeared, but it just depends on what species is there. This regulates the prey population, meaning it prevents the overeating of crops from the deer, which prevents the predators as the prey now becomes a food source. If there are more prey, it will equal to more predators, but prey becomes too numerous, the prey population may decline. Then if you look to your right and look down, you see the deers eating grass. Like I said before, grass being the producer and the deers being the consumer. The producer is the energy foundation for the ecosystem, and without them, this can impact the environment and population of the consumer that relies on them. Let me show you some examples. Now that you understand some of the basics of these relationships, I want to show you their close long-term relationships between the different species and how they survive and live together. These are called symbiotic relationships, and there's 3 types: commensalism, mutualism, and parasitism. To your right, you see beehives, and right next to the beehive are some flowers that the bees are pollinating. That's why I call mutualism, which means that they both benefit from this encounter. Bees get the honey, and flowers get pollinated by the bees. Look, this isn't a species to species, but a species to environment. There's birds resting and nesting on that tree. The birds get a safe place to lay its young while the tree is not harmed or helped. This is called commensalism, as one thing gets the benefit and the other isn't harmed at all. Aw, poor thing, look closely. See those black bugs on its skin? That's a tick. It sucks the blood of the host, which it can affect the deer's overall health and lead to population decline. This is why I call parentialism, as the tick gets the benefit, but the deer gets the negative. Okay, now you know what the terms are. I want to talk about competition. What is competition, anyways? Like in sports, where two guys play to see who wins? Yes. But in this context of this unit, competition is when two or more organisms want to have the same resource because the resource is limited. So not all organisms can get the same resource and must fight for it. This could be food, water, shelter, or mates. There are two types of competition. First, we have intra-competition, which is where two of the same species fight for the same resource. So deer fighting.
And we have inter-competition,
which is between species. So squirrel and bird fighting for the same resource. Okay, now you know how certain species interact, like how predators catch prey and how certain species have symbiotic relationships. Let's talk about how some organisms can protect themselves, survive in these different situations. Why is this even important anyways? Well, competition helps shapes the population size. It chooses the best adapted individuals that are most likely to survive and produce offspring. Natural selection is the term I could use. Let me show you some defense mechanisms animals use in predation and competition. Come here. Why does it smell so bad? Look at that, a skunk in the wild. It may look harmless, but if I were you, I wouldn't even try to pet it. You see, when a skunk feels threatened, it will lift its tail and spray a very smelly chemical that burns both the nose and eyes of the predator. The chemical is produced is a toxin, which will stay on your eyes for days. But skunks don't immediately spray their toxin right away. Because what if there's an animal that was just walking around? It'll be a waste to spray it. Before it sprays, it gives you a warning. Example of this is hissing or stomping their feet. This is a behavior defense, basically saying that, hey, you should back off or I'm going to do it. Oh, look, a caterpillar. Where? Right there. Huh? It blends perfectly with the leaf. That's why I like to call camouflage. This is not only good for hiding from predators, but for competition. We see this caterpillar hiding from other herbivores, like, for example, a beetle that is competing for the same leaf. Since it's fighting other herbivores, it fights for the right for the leaf. But little did you know, the caterpillar was chomping away the leaf as it watches the brawl. Is that eagle's noises? Are we safe? No. That's not eagle. Don't worry. Ain't no way a bird of that size is making that loud of a noise. Well, it is. See that bird? It's copying the calls of a bigger and scarier bird. But why does it do this? It's because when other birds hear it, they would feel scared and would fly away thinking a tougher bird is coming. Little did they know, it was just a bird that looked just like them, swooping and stealing all the food without any competition. This is mimicry, as the bird tries to pretend to be something else to win. Overall, we see this mechanism like camouflage, toxins, mimicry, and certain behaviors helps that organism survive in their environment. These adaptations increase their chances of survival, which helps shape the population dynamic. This is a lot to take in. Let's go take a break. Are you enjoying your time? Yeah. I can't believe I'm learning so much exploring this environment. Thank you. No problem. Want to learn some more? Sure. I need to ace my exam or mom and dad are going to take my games away. Alright. The break's over. Let's walk around again. Okay then. I want to explain more on communities. Communities don't always stay the same forever. It change over time, which is called succession. There's two types of successions. The first one is primate, which means that life happens when there's no life before. Like when there's no life or soil. Like for example, millions upon millions of years ago, the earth was just rock, lava, and gas. No life, nothing. Then volcanoes came in and created land and bacteria, algae, and creating life. Basically what I'm trying to say is that it had to make nothing out of something. Since the environment is so new, only a handful of species can live in such harsh conditions. But as life grows over time, more animals can move in, causing more population and different species to come to the environment to make it more livable. Sooner or later, the primate succession will stabilize and reach a balance in the community called a climax community. Then a secondary is when something disturbs or damages an existing community. Example of these are forest fires, but unlike primate succession, there's soil already, so it recovers way faster. Also, the population that defines the community starts to regrow faster as well, returning back into a climax community. Wait, hold on a minute. A climax community? What's that? Well, a climax community is a stable and balanced ecosystem which doesn't really change. unless some other force disturbs it. After undergoing secession so many times, it finally reaches a state of equilibrium, where everything in the community has a purpose and is well suited for the local environment. Example of this would be the desert. Everything is adapted to the dry conditions, but nothing really changes. It will only change if a major event happens, let's say a natural disaster. Okay, now that you know some pretty good ideas about the ecosystem, population, and how it could change and the relationships, I want to get into some math. Wait, math? I thought we were doing bio. Well, yeah, but this is important. You know how different species adapt to the environment and change? No? Don't they just learn from it, like how we learn to do problems at school? Yeah, they do, but I want to talk about how they do it on a genetic level. Before I go to another rant, let me explain some key terms to understand so you understand some of the context that I will be saying. Here's the question. What are we made of? Huh? Skin, meat, and bone? Yeah, but look deeper. I don't know. Well, we are made of DNA, and DNA is the blueprint of how living things grow and look and work. Without it, we wouldn't even exist. Wow, I didn't even know that. Well, I'm gonna even blow your mind even more. Did you know that DNA has structures as well? Really? Well, there's something called genes, which is a segment of your DNA that carries the instructions for specific traits. And to dig deeper, alleles are different forms of genes. For example, the alleles for your eye colors could be a version of brown or blue. Now that you know what a gene is, what do you think a gene pool is? Well, a pool could fit in a lot of people, so I guess it could be multiple genes from many individuals? Yes, but to be more accurate, a gene pool is all the genes and alleles present in the population. Now you get it. Now we need to understand the 5 basic rules of the Hardy-Weinberg principle. No way, rules? Why can't I just learn it right now? Well, the Hardy-Weinberg principle is basically what if the population genes stay the same over time. I'm going to list the 5 rules. There are no mutations, so no alleles are being added. And there's also no natural selection, so all of them have to survive and survive equally. There's no dominant trait that stands out from the rest. Also, we have gene flow, meaning that there's no migration, like the population is not moving anywhere or any population moving in. Also, it has to be a large population. If the population was small, there would be genetic drift, which means random changes in the allele frequencies. And lastly, random mating. It has to be random mating and no mating based on their traits, so everyone has an equal chance to reproduce like everyone else. Overall, the Hardy-Weinberg principle shows us when a population does not evolve. This is significant as it brings a baseline to compare what a real population, even though the principle isn't really realistic. It gives us the idea to other populations that break this, an evolution might happen. Now then, I'm going to show you some factors that causes these changes, so the opposite of the Hardy-Weinberg principle. I already said some like genetic drift, gene flow, and natural selection, but now I will go more in depth into it. Okay, now that I'm going to list some factors that cause or hinder diversity in a gene pool. Natural selection, as the traits that are better suited for the environment have a more likely chance to survive and reproduce, which overall makes a specific trait more common. Then we have genetic drift, where changes happen in an allele due to an event or by chance, which causes certain alleles to disappear or some alleles to become more common just by chance, which reduces genetic diversity over time. And then we got gene flow. So if an individual moves from different environments and others move in, which can increase diversity as it introduces the environment with new alleles from other populations. No random mating. So if different populations choose who they want to mate with, it could cause inbreeding and reduction in genetic variation, as others who don't have the desirable traits are left behind. And lastly, we have mutation, a change in DNA sequence that can cause new alleles in a population, causing more diversity. These new alleles can either give them an advantage or a disadvantage. I forgot to mention this, but there's also 2 effects. First off, we have the bottleneck effect, which is when a population is reduced, like if a disaster happens, which reduces the genetic variation and variety. Then we have the founder effect, which is a small group starts a new population and moves away from the larger group. But since it's a small group, genetic variation is limited. Basically, all the factors I said is the opposite of the Hardy-Weinberg principle. Okay, now that we understand the Hardy-Weinberg principle and why it's important, we can move on to how do we apply it. So, to see if a population is evolving or staying stable, scientists use the Hardy-Weinberg equation to calculate the frequencies of alleles and genotypes in the population. These equations help determine if the population's genetic makeup is changing over time. Here's how it works. There are two main equations that you need to know. Firstly, we have P plus Q equals 1, and this equation represents the allele frequencies in a population. The P meaning dominant, which means it's a strong gene, and then we have Q, which is the weaker gene, or I like to say the quiet, as the effects are hidden when a dominant gene is present. Together, these two should always add up to 1 because there's only two possible alleles, dominant or recessive, for each gene. Then the second one, we have P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared equals 1. This equation represents the genotype frequencies in a population. We have P squared, which is the homozygous dominant group allele, AA, both capitalized, same as before, it's strong. Then we have 2PQ, which is the frequency of the heterotype genotype, capital A and lowercase a. For this one, it's one of each, but as I said before, the recessive will always be in the shadow of the dominant one. And then we have Q squared, frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype, both lowercase a, the quiet one. Again, the total should always add up to 1. By using these equations, you can calculate the frequencies of alleles and genotypes in a population. If the observed data doesn't match with the expected Hardy-Weinberg frequency, it suggests that evolution might be happening. It's time to show you how it will work in a real-life example. Let's say we study a population of 100 rabbits and we found that 36 of them have white fur, which is the recessive, lowercase aa. Fur color is controlled by 1 or 2 alleles. We have capitalized A, dominant, gray fur, and then lowercase, recessive, white fur. So, white fur equals lowercase aa, and we know 36 out of the 100 rabbits are white.
Okay, the second step is to find P, but to find P first, we must find Q. Okay, we already know that Q squared is 0.36, but to find P, we must find Q. So to do that, we have to square root Q squared,
giving us Q, the answer of 0.6. Now we could use the formula for allele frequencies to find P. So we substitute Q, and then we do some algebra, then boom, we have P equals 0.4.
I have a quick tip to verify if it's correct or not.
To double check your work, you can always plot all the values back, and if it's true, it's correct. So for this instant, 0.4 plus 0.6 equals 1, which is correct. Now we have step 3, calculate the expected genotype frequencies. To find P squared, we just square P, which equals 0.16. Okay, overall right now we know that Q equals 0.6 and Q squared equals 0.36. Let's find P squared first. Now it's time to solve. Okay, we use the formula for the genotype frequency, and now we plot all the values. And see, 1 equals 1, which is correct now. And now we have the answer to this problem. In conclusion, the genotype frequency, we have 16% is dominant, 48% is heterozygous, and 36 is recessive. And then for the recessive allele frequencies, Q equals 0.6, and the dominant allele frequency is P equals 0.4.
Let's do one more example, but this time we found the allele frequency first.
Okay, in a population, the frequency for dominant allele, capital B, for black feather birds is P equals 0.7. Okay, step 1 is to find Q, frequency of the dominant allele. And the question is asking to find allele frequency and genotype. So we use the formula for the allele frequency, and we already know what P is, so we just plot it. So Q equals 0.3. And now step 2, we just convert the alleles to the genotype frequency. For this, we just square P and Q, giving us the value of P squared equals 0.9 and Q squared equals 0.03. After plotting all the values, we will get 1 equals 1, which means it's correct. And now we could solve. In conclusion, genotype frequency, we have 49% are capital BB, which is black, and then 42% are capital B lowercase b, which is also black, and then 9% is lowercase bb, white. And then we have the recessive allele frequency is Q equals 0.3 and dominant allele frequency P equals 0.7. Do you get it? Well, yeah, it makes sense. It's not too bad. I have a question though. Yeah? Why is it so important for a gene pool to change? Well, without it, there won't be new traits. Everyone would stay the same for generations and generations. Also, if there's no new traits and environment changes, guess what? The population won't be able to adapt, which can lead to extinction. It's important since mutations add variation and natural selection chooses the best traits. This allows the population to evolve and adapt to changes in the environment. Okay, now, let's go deeper. Since we know some of the basics to how population grows and shrinks, how do we really calculate this? Before we dive into this, I want to show you some terms so you understand some of the context. First, natality, which is the birth inside the population, so growth. Second is immigration, which is individuals moving in, so adding as well, so growth. Third, mortality, which is death, so removes individuals. And lastly, immigration, moving out, so decrease individuals as well. Okay, this is one of the 4 basic formulas to find the net change in a population size. This influences population size and growth. Okay, we have triangle n equals bracket natality plus immigration bracket minus bracket mortality plus immigration bracket. Let me show you a quick example of how you would really use it. Okay, so we know that there's birth 40, immigration 10, death 25, and immigration 5. Since I already told you what the terms are, you just plot them all in, and then you just get 20. Okay, I forgot to mention it, but the triangle N means number of individuals. So in the role of growth, this is just a starting point to all calculations. There's a few more terms that the calculations use that I want to mention. We got biotic potential, which is if there's no limit, the maximum reproduction speed will increase, which is why it's called potential. So in the role of growth as well, it pushes it up. Carrying capacity, capital K, which is the maximum limit where the environment can support long term. So this is where the growth usually stops. Then the final one, environment resistance. I don't think I really need to explain it, but it means what slows the growth down. This could be from limited resources, diseases, weather, etc. Okay, since I explained everything, I want to show you 3 more formulas.
Okay, this seems really overwhelming right now, but I'm going to explain each of the 3 equations. Okay, first of all, we have growth rate. Triangle N over triangle T. The triangle means change. And what this tells you is the individuals gained or lost per unit time.
Then we have per capita growth rate, which is triangle N over N. N meaning initial population. And what this tells you is the growth rate per individual.
Then after this, we have population density, which is N over A or N over V. A stands for area and V stands for volume. And this tells you how crowded a population really is. Example time. Okay, in this forest, there's 50 kilometers square of area. And there's a carrying capacity of around 1,000 deer. At the start of all this, there are 100 deer. And there's plenty of food for them. So there's going to be a lot of growth. 2 years later, there's 800 deer. But food shortage and diseases kick in. So environment resistance is up, which means growth slows down. Then another year passes, and there's now 1,000 deer, and the birth is balanced with death. Population hovers around K, which is carrying capacity. Okay, now the question is asking us to find the growth rate, the per capita growth rate, and the population density. Okay, so what we know right now is that year 0, there's 100 deer. Year 2 is 800 deer. And year 3 is 1,000 deer. And the carrying capacity is 100 deer. And then the area of forest is going to be 50 kilometers square. Okay, now let's use the 3 formulas to calculate all of them. Okay, first off, we're going to use the formula for growth rate. Okay, first off, we're going to have to find the change in the population size. So how we do this is we're going to subtract year 2 with year 0. So 800 minus 100. And to find the change of time, we just have to subtract year 2 with 0. So 2 minus 0, which is 2. And then we divide 700 with 2, which gives us 350 deer a year. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for year 2 and year 4. So 1,000 minus 800, which is 200. And then 4 minus 2 for the change of time, which is 2. And then we just plot these in. 200 divided by 2, which gives us 100 deer a year. And now we're going to do per capita growth rate. Okay, same thing for this. We're looking for the change in population size. So 800 minus 100. And then we're looking for the regular size, population size beforehand, which is 100. And then we plot these in. 700 divided by 100 is 7.0 per capita. Same thing with year 2 and year 4. We're looking for the change, population size, 100 minus 800. What's the original? 800. We plot these in. 200 divided by 800 gives us 0.25, which is 0.25 per capita. And now lastly, we're going to find the population density. Okay, for this one, we're doing the same thing. We're finding year 0 and year 2. For this one, we're not looking for the change in population size. So for this one, we just put 800 as n. And for area, we already know area, which is 50. So we just plot these in. 800 divided by 50 gives us 16 deer kilometers square. It's really important to add the square as we're using area. Same thing from year 2 and 4. We're looking for the population size. We're not looking for the change, which is 1,000. And the area does stay the same, so 50. And then we divide these. 1,000 divided by 50, which gives us 20 deer per kilometer square. Okay, we did all three, and I put this in the summary table. This table kind of shows you how significant the population of deer kind of slowed down. And the reason why is because it reached biotic potential and also the carrying capacity. Okay, now that you know some factors influencing growth of the population, I want to show you in a graph. Okay, there's two types of graphs. First, I want to talk about the exponential growth, which is the J-shaped curve. And it looks like just like the name, the letter J. First, it starts off slow, then boom, increases super fast. Why this happens is because there's plenty of resources for them to thrive. Then we got the S-shaped curve called the logistic growth. And what it looks like is that it starts off slow and then it grows fast and then it levels off since it's about to hit the carrying capacity. And this type of graph is more realistic. As you know, all resources are limited and it's not possible for nature to have infinite resources. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I want to talk about open and closed populations. Okay, firstly, we have the open population, and this is where both species come in and leave, which is also realistic as the environment is always changing every single day. So gene flow could happen here. An example of this is the bird population, where other birds can fly to different areas. But for the closed population, I don't think I need to explain this since it's already self-explanatory. But I'm going to explain it anyway. This is where no animals, no species come in or out. Just birth and death happens here. These are mostly seen in labs or places of isolation, so no gene flow whatsoever. Example of this could be a lake with no river or connected stream. Nothing comes in or out. So for this population, the only genes that cause change are within the population itself. Whoa, look at all those rodents in the area. Why are there so many? Well, these rodents are known for producing pretty fast and many babies as well. There's a term for this, which I like to call R-selected. Basically what it is that these species are the type to have a large population but short lives. This is due to a lack of parental care. All these species tend to be smaller. Okay, look at those elephants. What can you see the difference? Well, the elephants are huge and there's way less of them. Yes, you're right. This is what I like to call K-selected, which means that these species have few babies but live longer lives. This is due to the parental care actually caring for them. But since they take care of them, they tend to not able to produce as much, so the population of the species is really slow. Let me show you a graph of what both of the two selected look like. Here we have the R species. You see, it's very rapid, a big boom, but it also dips rapidly too, a bust, due to the environment not having enough to sustain the amount of population. And the reason why it busts is because it passes the carrying capacity. Then we have the K species. It slowly rises, called the exponential phase, but the population doesn't pass the carrying capacity, allowing these species to have longer lives.
what I like to call plateau phase. Wow, this is a lot to take in. I wonder how much information I still have from that long lesson. Alright, I think I taught you everything that I know. I think it's time to go back. "50 minutes later." So how was it? It was pretty fun. I understand like about 75%. Thank you so much. I could have not done this without you. You were so helpful.